Welcome back to this episode of the K2C podcast. Today we have our usual guest, Trina. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. For those of you who are new here, hi, my name is Trina. And for those of you who are coming back, hello once again. Good to see you. Those of you who don't know, I am based in Ottawa, Canada. I'm currently working here. I came as an international student, and then I've just recently transitioned into a worker, uh, going on citizenship very fast.
Nice one. So, in today's video, I want us to talk about whether one needs to have two jobs to survive after university in Canada. And I like that you threw that in, that you're done with school and now you're working in Canada, because I feel like that's essential for the people that are listening. I want to start off by talking about what the average hourly income is for recent graduates.
Yeah, so the average hourly income depends on the field that you're going into. And it depends on the organization that you're working with. But you find some people are going into law firms, and I'm in the legal field. So a lot of the knowledge that I have is based in the legal field. People that I know are going into law firms and would be earning maybe like $25 to $30 an hour. But there's also people who are going into law firms and earning $17 an hour. So it varies, regardless of would you graduate with the same degree, it just depends on where exactly you're going. People in the medical field, I have a couple of friends in the medical field who will graduate and will be earning $22 an hour. So you're looking between, it can range from minimum wage to $35 an hour, depending on your skill, your level of education that you've just finished, your educational background, your professional background too. That plays a factor. Like it has a role to play as well in the amount of money that you make.
Yeah, I guess also based off of what you've said, I would say even the position that
Exactly.
you're given at the job, because you said you could finish with the same degree as someone else and end up earning two very different salaries,
Yeah,
which I'm guessing is impacted by what you're going to be doing at the organization.
exactly.
Okay. Once you're a graduate, one question I've been having as well is, are you limited to the jobs you can do? Because you find maybe after graduating, you would be looking at more professional jobs, mostly as an international student. But then there are many tasks as well, such as cleaning and like the retail associate thing. If you haven't seen the videos, we have videos talking about high experience being a retail associate. Are those jobs closed off to you? And if not, what are the disadvantages of going for those jobs even after finishing your master's program?
Yeah, so when you're getting a job in Canada, the jobs are ranked into different classification groups. So it goes from recently they changed it. It goes from 0 to 5. 5 being the jobs that require the least amount of skills and qualifications, and 0 being the ones that need an insane amount of skills and qualifications in order to obtain those jobs. Those will be more like managerial positions or CEO positions, very high ranking positions. I personally, as an international student, would strongly advise someone to get a much more professional job, something in the upper end of the ranking, because your ultimate goal, I assume, would be to get permanent residence in Canada. And in order to get permanent residence, at least from my experience and my understanding, you have to be in the top 3 tiers before you can enter the pool, or it just gives you more points if you're in the top 3 tiers, and that work experience is valued. Um, I don't think the retail associate positions fall into the first 3 tiers. I think they'd fall into the fourth tier. So with that experience, you would miss out on the possibility of being able to apply for permanent residence after a year of working. Now, that's not to say you completely disregard those jobs. And that's something we're going to segue into, I assume, in this conversation. But those jobs they can be your secondary positions, your secondary jobs. I wouldn't advise having them as your primary job, like your main source of income, the thing that you go to 9 to 5 every single day. I wouldn't advise that being it.
Okay, so you've mentioned that that the top three of that scale from 0 to 5 is those are the jobs that hold the most weight, right? So
Yes.
just for clarity, is that 0, 1, 2, or is it 1, 2, 3? I know it's from 0 to 5.
It's I believe it's 0, 1. Okay, yes, I did say top three. Top four then. I believe
Okay,
it's 0, 1, 2, 3.
okay,
Yeah, I think it's 0, 1, 2, 3. Those are the top ones that you can gain some valuable Canadian experience that will be considered.
okay. Now, I would like us to maybe let me just also give a disclaimer. I have a flu right now, so you hear my voice sounding some type of way. Plus, I'll be trying to clear my throat, so kindly bear with me. But basically, I want to ask, first of all, maybe you could tell them what position you are doing or what position you hold at the company you're working with, and then also tell them how or where on that scale you fall from 0 to 5.
Yeah, so when I first joined the company, I was working as a law clerk. So that fell in step three in the third category. And then I was promoted to the position of a supervisor. That bumped me up into step two.
Nice one.
So yeah, so I started in tier three and then I got bumped up into tier two.
Okay, are you well versed with these tiers? Like, if we were to do a video about it, would you be able to provide substantial information?
I can provide substantial information, but I would advise that people don't solely depend on it. You can listen to what we say, but also go and check to verify. Because once again, these are very extensive tiers. Like tier zero can have 100 positions in it. And there's no way I would memorize all 100. I can provide some information and guidance on each of them. I'm not an expert or professional in it. I can provide it based on my understanding and my knowledge, but I'd also advise people outside of it to go and look into it a little bit more and do a bit of their own research or consult someone who's a certified person in it or an expert in it.
Great. Great. You had this here first. Do your due diligence. This is a great step, you watching this video, but go ahead and search for other videos talking about this. So the next question I have is, what's the most number of jobs you've seen one person work?
I think I've had a friend who's worked 4 jobs
How
at
many
one go.
hours are they giving
Do you
to
know
each
what? They're
employee?
not even sleeping. I highly doubt they're sleeping because they have the regular daytime job, which is like a 9 to 5 type of job. And then after that, they'll do, for example, Ubering. They'll do Ubering between 5 as soon as they're getting off work until like 9 p.m. Then from that, they're going straight into like a customer service position. You know, those online sales people that like the people that you contact when you need customer assistance and all that. So they go into that kind of job. And then they have a weekend gig as well. So their days are packed,
Mm.
crazy, crazy, crazy packed. But you have to do what you have to do, I guess.
And these people are not in school, right? These are people that have
They're not,
graduated
they're
and
done in
they're
school. Yeah,
okay.
they're
That
done
that
with school.
sounds that sounds like they're working 50 hours plus uh,
Exactly.
a week.
A week, definitely,
That's
definitely.
crazy.
Because I do, and just a 9 to 5. Well, yeah, just like an equivalent of a 9 to 5, and I
Mm,
work 40 hours a week. So you can imagine if they're doing all the 4 jobs, they're
mm,
probably tending towards 60 hours a week of work.
mm.
Yeah.
Okay, what are some of the circumstances that lead to this, where someone is looking at doing all these jobs and not just focusing on maybe one or two high value jobs, high value being, speaking on the scale or the scale of tiers you gave us, high value
Yeah.
being either one in zero, tier one. Why opt to do all these different jobs?
Yeah. Well, it varies. It depends on the person. Sometimes you find people will come here and they have to support themselves, but then they also have to support family back home. So you find that the money they're earning from the Uber position, that's all the money. They don't get a penny from that. They send all that money back home to support family members there. And then on top of that, they have to sustain themselves here and be able to lead a comfortable life here. So you find there's a lot of things that go into play with it. It's also just wanting to be in a comfortable space. You're not comfortable time wise, but maybe some of those jobs are not paying a high wage. You might find you're getting minimum wage in your main job, and you're required to top that up with something else to make sure you're earning something that can, where you're not living paycheck to paycheck. You have a bit more wiggle room in terms of your finances. So there's honestly a lot that goes into it, but the two main things is minimum wage income and sending money back home. That's at least what I heard from this person.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some of the things someone should consider before getting two or more jobs?
Well, um, look at definitely the amount of wage you're making from your primary job. Look at the amount of money that's coming in. Can you live off of it? Can you live a decent life off of that income? Because right now everything is going up. Housing, food, groceries, life is just becoming a lot more expensive in Canada. So you should be able to lead a steady life off of that income. If you can't, it might be worth getting a second job to supplement that or to back that up. It also depends on your responsibilities. I personally am not responsible for anyone but myself, thankfully. I think all my siblings are kind of doing their thing. My parents are supporting the little one too. So I don't have to chip in as much. So I'm able to just sustain myself and feed myself, pay my bills and everything on time with just this one income. If I did have to contribute in that regard, I would probably consider getting a second job. I would consider it. Then the third thing, another thing that I factor in is what other demands do you have on your time? Do you have like church activities? Are you studying to get licensed in a particular program? I'm currently studying to get licensed as a lawyer here. So I spend a lot more time studying. When I come back from work, I'm probably studying in the evening. Early in the morning, I'm studying. Over the weekend, I'm studying. So I don't have that much time to say, I'll give this many hours to another job. I've considered it. It's just not as feasible for me. So look at all the things that are demanding on your time as well as your finances, and then make that judgment call. Or you might not really have much, but you might not really have much demanding your time, but you just want a little bit more money to feel a bit more comfortable. That's
Mm.
also a valid reason. If you want a bit more, a couple of $100 extra in your bank account won't hurt. So if you want to see that and you don't want the stress and anxiety of, having to do a lot more budgeting, you want a bit more wiggle room, then that might be a factor too.
Mm. Okay. I feel like for me the most interesting point you've raised that I didn't even consider was the third point, where you're talking about what other demands are there on your time. What else are you doing? You spoke about this exam you're doing in order to you're basically working towards becoming a lawyer in
Yeah.
Canada. So those are things that you need to consider. Um, Next, I would like us to talk about the risks that are faced by having more than one job. Are there some risks that you're aware of that maybe the common person that's not that side might not consider before um, getting more than one job?
Second job. Um, the main risk that I can think of is burnout. um it's hard that you it's I find it hard to believe that a person can function fully working four jobs for months on end and be able to function properly and not have mental breakdowns. It's so hard because you don't have any time for yourself. You won't have any time to just be free on the weekend and go and hang out with some friends. You won't have time to just sit and relax and do nothing, which is also, I would say it's a little bit important. It's quite important. But also burnout in the sense that you may not be able to deliver in your main job as much as you would think. Because if you're surviving off of 3 hours of sleep, especially like the job I do, I have to be very alert and pay a lot of attention to detail. The smallest thing has to be spotted. So if I'm surviving on 3 hours of sleep a day because I'm working 2, 3 other jobs, it will reflect in my work. And I don't want to be in a situation where I'm compromising my position in one job because I'm trying to supplement or add to that by working in other jobs. So you have to factor that in. If your first job is not as demanding, if it's something very laid back where you don't have to focus as much, then go for it. You may not really stand that risk. In my case, people's lives are basically in my hands and in our hands. I don't want to jeopardize that because I'm trying to work additional jobs.
I'm glad you brought up the point of not delivering on your main job. Because my next question was going to be, are there employers, have you heard of situations where employers decide to let go of someone because they found out maybe they're doing a second job or they have multiple jobs on the side?
No, I haven't heard of employers that would do that. I think majority of the employers here are very understanding. They see the situation and they understand that the price of groceries is going up. $100 doesn't get you as much now as it did a year ago. And I think they're very understanding of that. I have seen situations where, I've heard of situations where employers will probably withhold from hiring or retaining someone because they're doing so much. Because you come in and you're like, oh, I'm doing 4 jobs right now, and then I have a family, and then I have a kid, and then, there's just too much going on. It's hard to believe that you'll focus.
And the
So
employer decides to let you go because of that?
not really let you go, but they decide not to hire you. They might decide not to hire you because they already know there's so much demands on your time. It will be hard for you to focus on the
Mm.
employer's job. So I've not heard of someone being fired because they have multiple jobs, but I've heard of situations where employers may not necessarily, or they're not as in favor of hiring someone who has a lot going on at the same time.
Mm.
And I think it's a very valid reason. It's very understandable because if you're coming into a situation and I know my business is likely to be at risk because you're doing so many tasks, I wouldn't want that. I'd rather get someone who has maybe 2 jobs and then have that done. But even then, most employers, unless the person is open, I don't think many employers would ask you what else you have going on or if you're doing anything. And if they do, I don't think, well, this is just my guess. I don't think you have an obligation to disclose because that's like your personal life. I'm here for this job. That's it. What I'm doing outside is probably not your concern.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a valid argument. Um, where it's not the concern of the employer what else you're doing, but also to consider that factor that it could lose you an opportunity. You
Yeah.
having all these things beforehand, before you get into the job, if it so happens that, sorry, if it so happens that the information comes out that you're doing all these other stuff and you're taking on this new task, like the position you've mentioned, what you're doing, I doubt your employer would hire you knowing you have all that going on. So I think that's a very valid point.
Yeah. I think it would be tricky if they did. It
Mm.
would be tricky for them to hire me. Yeah.
Okay. What are some of the jobs you would be looking into? Now, here we're going to be going into the hypothetical side.
Yeah.
But you as a supervisor at a law firm, what jobs would you see yourself getting into that you feel might not diminish the work that you're putting in on your main job?
Yeah. So I'll definitely look into something that doesn't demand a lot from my brain, something that I can do by just existing as a human. So, for example, Uber driving. it's something I may not go into because it's not a safe world out there. It's not something that I would go into, but I know a lot of people who will work in the government and then in the evening they're going to do Uber. They're driving Ubers around. So Uber driving is a good option. I personally would consider like personal support, being a personal support worker, because it's, in my opinion, it's something I love doing. I love taking care of people. It doesn't demand so much from my time. It doesn't demand so much from, I mean, it demands a lot from my time, but not my brain. And I'm not getting mentally exhausted from doing it. So it's something I would consider. Retail work would be another good option where, you're really just folding clothes away mindlessly. So you don't really need to be very present in that. Yeah, small jobs that you can do without really exhausting yourself. That would be my go-to option.
Mm. And
Yeah.
would there be a procedure that you would need to go through maybe to alert your employer that you're taking on this new opportunity, or you have no obligation to let your employer know that you're doing something else?
Yeah, I don't have an obligation to let them know.
Mm.
I don't have an obligation to let them know. And I know, for example, I know people who do bouncing work. So they work at clubs in the evening. After work, and they do it only on the weekends. Every Friday night, they'll go to the club and work as a bouncer. They're not working long hours. They're doing 4 hours because the clubs are not open for so long. Doing 4 hours Friday night, doing 4 hours Saturday night. You get to sleep in over the weekend. You come back Monday and you're fully refreshed. But you've made your $300-400 over that weekend.
Mm.
By the end of the month, that's coming to like 1,000 something, maybe $1,000 once tax has been deducted.
Nice. That's an
So
extra 1,000 that you've just been earning on the weekend.
earning, exactly. Exactly. And what are
Mm.
you doing? You're just standing there making sure people are safe, and that's not to overlook certain positions. I'm just looking at what it needs for you to do that job. The person
Mm.
I know who does it, they just say, I just stand there and tell people, hey, stop playing around, like don't do that, or behave yourself, or I'll kick you out if you're not behaving yourself. But for that, it's a pretty fair, I think, a pretty fair secondary job to have.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. I think those have been some solid points you've shared. Maybe if there's something we've missed out that maybe you've thought about that you would like to share with the people in the audience, this would be the time to do it.
Not really, but if you guys have any further questions about this whole topic and getting a second job and where exactly to look and stuff like that, let us know down in the comments below, and we can figure something out.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to be having, well, it's still in the works, but we're looking at doing episodes where we just answer your questions. So definitely drop some comments in the comment section. We'll get back to you with a video, or even in the comment section, we'll respond to them as best as we can. And yeah,